providing this information. And again, there'll be a exit survey at the end to see what you learned or how we did. So we're going to get started. So we are so excited that you're joining us tonight for a Financial Aid Fundamentals webinar. I know it's a super important topic, probably a lot of questions you all have. Hopefully we'll answer most of them tonight and provide lots of resources and information so that way it'll ease a little bit of your concern. So we're going to get started. Again, we're so excited you're here. All right, so just a few housekeeping items to keep in mind. We will share this presentation with you all via email in the next few days. So anytime you see this little icon next to a resource, that just means that we've linked it for you so that way you can go back and open it up and take advantage of some additional information. So we'll send this out in the next few days to anybody who registered. So we all have your email, and then you'll have this information to review in the future. Again, we have the Q&A feature, so that way you can ask questions while we're going through the presentation. If there was something that you aren't sure of or unclear, you can utilize that, and we will either address it in the presentation or at the end when we have a Q&A section. We don't have the chat on because we want to make sure everyone sees the questions. So again, the Q&A feature will be available during this presentation. So many of the questions that you might ask in the Q&A will hopefully be answered through our material, but if not, we will address it at the end in the Q&A portion, so towards the end of the webinar. We also record this and all of our webinars, so that way we can post it on our YouTube channel, so that way students and families can revisit it or watch it if they weren't able to attend. So again, we will share that resource library in our YouTube channel, so that way you can watch this again or any other video that you might find interesting. So we'll send that out shortly. Alrighty, so in the district, we are very lucky to have a dedicated department for college and career counselors. So you can see across the top, there are a lot of pictures, but the basic is we have a college and career counselor at every high school within the district, including our alternative programs. So every high school has access to a college and career counselor to help support their goals and help answer any questions and guide them through this process, whether they're starting in 9th grade or at the current moment of a 12th grader. So each high school you can see right here listed above is their counselor. So these are going to be located either in the library or a college and career center. So we're on campus full time. So students can drop in and ask questions during their breaks or free times. We also utilize tutorial or different office hour type periods, as well as different school-wide activities. So who our department is, we are all credentialed school counselors. So we went through a school counseling program to be trained on the field of school counseling and are credentialed to work at a high school in the school counseling field. We are specialized in the college and career field because most of us have experience working within the field of college admissions as well as a high school counseling program. So some of your counselors have worked with different UCs or private colleges in the admissions process. So understanding what it looks like working with students before they apply, as well as what happens when the universities receive the application. So we have both sides of the picture. And then again, we're very data-driven. Ms. Wynn mentioned at the beginning, we had a survey and that we appreciate all of your feedback because those types of things help provide really great data to help our program do the best for our students. So we want to make sure we are providing the best resources and information and making sure that students are gaining information from what we have to offer for them. So some of the things we might help with, besides doing awesome webinars like this, we have counseling appointments that students and family can make with your counselor on site. We do school-wide initiatives such as college fair or school-wide lessons for all grade levels. We host different workshops such as financial aid, college essays. We have our YouTube channel, which we mentioned, and a webinar resource locker. So that way, if you're looking for something specific, we can help guide you and find that. We are on campus every day in the Career Center or library, depending on the campus, but we're here for students. We also help within classrooms. And then we are lucky to have 3 counselors who are bilingual with Spanish. So that way we can help students and support them in other new ways this year. Alrighty, so tonight's agenda, we're going to cover financial aid basics. So that way, hopefully you feel confident in understanding kind of what it is, and moving forward, feel pretty confident in the process. Why apply? Because we get that question often. What the application process actually looks like, a timeline, what the application literally looks like, what it includes, what information you might need to put in the application. We're going to go over college searching and how to make a college list or a college decision based on financial fit. So maybe your student is a senior and they've already applied, but once they receive the letter, how do you evaluate which college to pick based on the financial aid application? Additionally, we'll talk about some next steps and supports on campus, because tonight is not the last resource your students will have access to. We have different things on campus that students and families can attend. And then at the very end, Q&A, so that way we can answer all of your questions. All right. So what is financial aid? This is basically a way to help support students find ways to pay for expenses for college or career-related school. So maybe money to pay straight tuition or books, but it can also be for other expenses, maybe a car and other bills you might pay as a college student. So it's not always tuition and room and board, but that's most common. So these are some these are some types of financial aid that you might receive as a senior or with a student that is a senior. Once you receive your financial aid package, these are some terms and phrases you might hear. We want you to understand the difference. So for example, the first one would be grants. Students can be eligible for grants, which essentially are gift money or gift aid, where you don't have to pay that back. So this would be, students would be eligible once they complete the financial aid application, either the FAFSA or the CADA, and we'll talk about more of the application in a few minutes. But if they fill out those applications and they are eligible based on need, which is mostly income, they can be given by the state, the federal government, or even potentially the university or college. And then usually those are given to students right before school starts, so that way they can pay for tuition or whatever else and whatever fees they might have. Some examples of grants that you might see on your award letter include Cal Grant, California Middle Class Scholarship, Pell Grant, and the UC Blue and Gold Opportunity Program. So these are some different grants that you might see on your application, or your financial aid package when you get that back in a few months. But these are just some different samples. And then we also have scholarships. I know that's always a hot topic. Students coming into the Career Center asking, how can I apply for scholarships? That's something we definitely work with students. So scholarships are, again, free money, but students have to apply for individual scholarships. So the application might be different per scholarship. Some might be based on FAFSA or California Dream Act application, or it might have its own individual application. So that's something we can help students find. Sometimes scholarships can be granted by individuals, companies, different colleges, city organizations, large companies, etc. So we definitely have resources and we will help students navigate that process. And then the disbursement of when you receive those funds kind of depends on the individual scholarship, but probably close to when you have to pay your tuition. So these are a couple other types of financial aid that you might see on your award or your school might mention. So one is loans. I'm sure most people have heard of loans, or that's kind of the most common phrase, but we want to show all of the different types so that way students know what's available, so that way they can hopefully receive a plethora of financial aid. So that way loans would be like the smallest one they have to worry about. So in general, loans are money that's borrowed. So you have to pay that back, but the payment plans, they vary. And so to qualify, typically it's through the financial aid application of FAFSA or California Dream Act. And that's granted by the federal government. It really depends on the amount you receive. It's based on your income or your family income. So that's something, once you fill out the application, then they would send you that offer of what you might be eligible for. And again, it's usually dispersed right before school starts so that we can pay for your tuition and books and whatnot. So some example of loans include federal subsidized loans, which means that subsidized word, the interest is covered while you are in college. So you're not accruing the interest necessarily while you're in school for those 4 years or whatnot. Then there's federal unsubsidized loans. So that is, your interest is accruing from the moment you accept that money. So if you're in college for 4 years, that loan would accrue interest for those 4 years. And then the last one is Parent Plus loans. So this is a loan offered to parents. So If students qualify for some things, parents might also qualify for a loan too. So that's something that would be offered on your award letter, which we'll talk about in a little bit. And then the last one, which I think is really the most unique and fun kind of way to earn some money, but also has really great benefits, a work-study job. So a work-study job would be basically a part-time job on campus. So you earn a paycheck just like you would if you worked at Target, but you work on campus at the bookstore or as an admin in an office or at the coffee shop. So instead of giving the money up front like a scholarship, you work for 10 hours and then they pay you a paycheck for those 10 hours. But in order to be eligible, they still require you to fill out the financial aid applications. So that way they can determine if you are financially, if you are in need of a financial aid opportunity. And so you would be on the eligibility list for a work-study job at your campus. The cool part, I like this idea if you are eligible for work-study, because you can meet new people on campus. You work in the bookstore, you're chatting with your fellow classmates and whatnot. Also, it's just a way to get involved on campus. And they're very, respectful of students and their schedules and things like that. So I worked at the campus bookstore when I was in college and I absolutely loved it. And they were really flexible with your schedule. Your schedule changes every semester with your classes, right? So then they can change your schedule. And it was a really nice opportunity to make some extra money, but also be involved on the campus. So that's kind of one extra benefit, I think, of the work study. So again, work study is financial aid, but you don't get it up front. So you have to work just like your normal job at Starbucks, but they pay you your paycheck. You get a paycheck, you go to the office, pick it up. So that's just one additional layer of financial aid that I feel like a lot of times students or families don't really realize exist. So that way they can take advantage of working on campus.
All right.
Passing on over to Ms. Lynn.
Thank you, Ms. Rengifo. Okay, everybody. Really good questions already coming in the chat or in the Q&A, excuse me. Please use the Q&A. But we're answering your questions as they come in, but some really good ones coming in for sure. And of course, we'll stay back for additional questions at the end. Before I move on, I'd like to implement a quick poll because we'd love to get a sense of what schools are represented tonight and also what grade level. I want to get a sense of who's in the room so that we know who we're talking to so that we can make this as relevant to you as possible, right? So if you could take a moment just to answer these two questions for me, I'd greatly appreciate it. What school are you at or is your student at, right? And what grade is your student in? Or if you are a student, what grade are you in? I'm seeing a lot of responses. I'm going to give you just a second. I'd like to get full participation if at all possible. We have a lot of representation from San Juan Hills tonight and Elisa Nagel. I love to see it. I'm a Wolverine. So I'm so proud to see that representation from Eliso and a lot of senior families in here as well. So this is going to be very relevant to you. Thank you for participating in the chat, Holly. We have a San Clemente 12th grade parent in here with us. I love to see it. Okay, I'll give you just a couple more seconds to respond. With love full participation, we're at 85% of you participating in this poll. And then I'll close it out in 5, 4, 3, 2. There's always like the last minute 10 people who are like, oh, let me respond. And there's more of you now that I say that. And now I don't want to close it because I want to get all the answers. I'll end it. Okay, so we have great representation tonight. San Juan Hills, you win. You were out in full force tonight representing your school and the Stallions, and we have a lot of 12th grade families here tonight. So thank you for completing that poll for us. It just gives us a sense of who's in here, but it sounds like we have a lot of senior families with us, okay? So let's talk about why you should apply for financial aid, right? Why students should be applying to financial aid. That comes up a lot. It's like, why should I do this? I make too much money. Why would I bother, right? It's a big question that comes up every year. And it's something that we're happy to answer and address tonight with you. So something to start us off with is that seniors who complete a financial aid application are 84% more likely to immediately enroll in post-secondary education. And that makes perfect sense, right? When you think about it, students who actually apply for financial aid probably have more access to financial support to pay for their education and therefore are more likely to actually enroll in and attend college in the fall following graduation. And that's what we want for our students. When we don't apply for financial aid, we're closing that window of opportunity for our students because the beauty of applying for financial aid And we're going to go into the specific applications and the logistics in a second with you. But the beauty of applying is that you are not obligating yourself to anything, and you are not signing a contract saying that you have to take on loans or accept any scholarships or grants granted to your student, right? The purpose of applying for financial aid is just to see if you'll get something. And the worst case scenario is that you don't get anything. But then that's just a little bit of time that you've put into an application. That's all you've lost. It's a free application, so there's no financial risk involved, right? But it's something that can really open up some doors of opportunities for our students, which is why we encourage you to complete a financial aid application. So a couple reasons that I want to share with you before I pass this on to Ms. Gatlin. So why apply? So let's start with reason number one, and I'll go one by one with you. So reason number one is an Assembly Bill, California Assembly Bill 469. So this went into effect last school year. So for any parents in here who had seniors last year, you are familiar with this because there was messaging sent out from your school. So this Assembly Bill essentially states that all high school seniors are required to complete a financial aid application in order to graduate. So the state has made it a priority for our students to apply for financial aid because they understand that having access to paying for college will it will help students access higher education more, right? When we have sources of funding, we're more likely to attend college. Keep in mind that there is an opt-out option, okay? So for maybe any families out there that are like, absolutely not happening for us, you may opt out. So there will be a form that your family can access to opt out of completing an application for graduation. But we do encourage all of our students to complete an application because, again, if we're going to go back to that stat that I just shared with you, students are more likely to attend college when they have more funding sources, right? So reason number two, institutional aid. So Ms. Rengifo mentioned this earlier a little bit, but many colleges will use the information that you provide on your financial aid application to determine institutional aid. So they will take the information that you've provided on your FAFSA or your California Dream Act application, which we'll go into in a second. They're going to take that information and they're going to determine if you qualify for aid that they have as an institution, whether that's a Cal State, a UC, a private school, an out-of-state school, et cetera, right? So without that valuable information, they can't give you a full picture of what they might be able to provide to your student by way of free money, scholarships and grants, and also affordable loans, right? Federally funded loans, subsidized and unsubsidized, where the interest is getting covered for you or not, depending on your need and your situation. But institutional aid is something that we want you to think about because without that financial aid application, the institutions have a more difficult time giving you an accurate representation of what they can offer your student by way of financial aid. So it's really important that we fill that out so that we can qualify your students for as many scholarship, grant, and loan opportunities as possible. Thirdly, state aid. Again, Ms. Rengifo mentioned this, but it's worth repeating that by completing a financial aid application, again, we have two options, which we'll discuss in a second. By completing one of these applications, you automatically will be considered for California state aid. So by completing the FAFSA, for example, which is a federal application, students are automatically considered for California state aid. And we have a ton of different grants and scholarships that was shown on that previous slide. The Cal Grant, for example, and the Middle Class Scholarship, which I love to talk about. A lot of you have asked, are grants fully need-based? Typically, yes, they're based on income, typically, right? But did you know that the California Middle Class Scholarship, which can cover up to 30% of your child's tuition at a UC or a Cal State, has an income ceiling of $226,000 and an asset ceiling of $226,000. So it goes up every year because cost of living is going up every year. But that's a significant income ceiling, right? So California, and they expanded that amount this year, and they're expanding funds that are going towards the middle class scholarship for this coming school year. So California really is prioritizing our middle class families. $226,000 a year is middle class. I can't even begin to fathom that, but California is prioritizing that, right? And so by completing a financial aid application, you are putting your student in the running for state aid, which includes the middle class scholarship, which could significantly help you with tuition savings, right? Up to 30% of your students' tuition at a Cal State or a UC. One more page of reasons for you, and I'm gonna pass this off, okay? So reason number 4, affordable loans, right? When we apply for financial aid, we are putting ourselves in the running for potential loans, right? So federal loans. If any of you went to college or grad school, you might have pulled out some loans, and you might be familiar with that. But typically, the loans that students are qualifying for through the federal government is going to have a lower interest rate than a lot of private loans out there and a lot of private educational loans. So it's something to consider. And again, you don't have to accept loans if you get them. Keep that in mind. And you don't have to accept the full amount of loans if you get them from a college. You can actually designate exactly how much loans or what amount of money you want to accept from the school, and you can adjust your financial aid award package accordingly. So you don't have to agree to the full amount that they offer you. You can maybe just have your student borrow $1,000 a year or whatever it is. But by completing a financial aid application, you are making yourself eligible for loans. And that could be loans for the students. And colleges also offer loans to parents through the Parent Plus loan, which is a federal loan as well. Fifth reason is changes in finances. Okay, so a lot of our families often ask when we work with them, it's like they think that they make too much money, right? They're maybe above that 226,000 middle class scholarship ceiling, income ceiling, and they're like, why should we do this if we know that we're not going to qualify for anything? Unfortunately, situations can change, and we see this happening a lot, and this happened a lot during COVID, especially. But we just don't know where life will take us. And I certainly hope that for all of us, nothing will change and everybody will be gainfully employed always. But we don't know what's going to happen in the households, right? And when you complete a financial aid application and it is on file with your student's university, should you experience income loss or a dramatic change in income, having a financial aid application on file will allow you to contact the university and appeal the award amount that they gave you originally based on your new financial situation. And by having, again, an application on file already, it expedites that request and that appeal process for you. And so it's nice just to have it in your back pocket in case things change and in case you need to appeal for more aid. Having that financial aid application complete and on file with your university is going to really help you in that situation. And then finally, my last reason for you is the California Promise Program. How many of you, can I get a show of hands, if you know how to raise your hand in Zoom, have heard of the California Promise Program? It's gaining a lot of popularity in our district. As you're raising your hands, and a lot of us have heard of it, right? That is free college essentially at the community college for 2 years. And it's an amazing new opportunity that rolled out in about 2018 due to some legislation. And community college is free for students, first-time college-going students who attend full-time. In order to qualify for the California Promise Program, please note that your student has to complete a financial aid application. They will not qualify for the Promise Program without a financial aid application on file. So that's something that we have to do to take advantage of the Promise Program, and that's at any local community college in Orange County. One thing I want to note before I pass this on to Angela is that there is no income ceiling for the Promise Program. So all they ask is that you complete a financial aid application. However, you can make $5 million a year and that will not impact your student. They will still qualify for the Promise Program as long as they complete their application by the Promise Program deadline and complete a financial aid application and enroll full-time in school, right? More on this to come, but this is a very compelling reason as to why you should complete a financial aid application, because it could result in free college for your student. And with that, I'm going to pass this right on to Angela to talk to you about application options.
Okay, great. Thank you, Ms. Nguyen. So yes, as she mentioned, there are a couple different application options for your students. Ms. Nguyen, do you mind going to the next slide for me? Thank you. So the purpose of the application, so there's a couple steps. So step 1, you have the FAFSA, and you also have the California Dream Act application. So as mentioned before, this is for collecting information from you that's going to be shared with the colleges that your students are applying to. The college programs, they use this information to determine what your actual financial aid package is going to be. So even though you're entering all this information into FAFSA or the California Dream Act, ultimately, if you're getting a financial aid package, you're going to be getting it from the actual university or college itself. Okay, so your different financial aid options as far as applications go. So as mentioned, you have the FAFSA, which stands for Free Application for Federal Student Aid. This is going to be for US citizens or any permanent resident. So if you have a green card or green card holder. And we also have the California Dream Act application. So students with no social security number, including U visa holders or TPS status, as well as if you've attended school in California for 3 or more years, you'll qualify for the California Dream Act application. So it's really important to make sure you're doing your research beforehand. You don't want to fill out one application, go, oops, I should have filled out the other application. But they make it pretty straightforward as far as what the requirements are for each of them. Okay, so the better FAFSA. So FAFSA has improved their application. It's supposed to be a lot shorter. Went from 103 questions to 46 questions or less. Okay, so that's going to be a lot quicker as far as you guys doing the application as a family, right? So if you're a student, make sure you have your parents, guardians with you, helping to complete this application. Very important. Another change is you get to list more colleges. So before you were only able to list 10 colleges at a time. You'd have to go in after that was processed, delete those, and then add more colleges. So this is great. You don't have to worry about that because I know it's scary to delete colleges in your FAFSA. So this year you're able to list up to 20 colleges at once in your FAFSA application. Kind of a downer, the sibling discount is removed. So unfortunately, parents no longer get a break for having multiple, students in this, college at the same time. I know that's a bummer, but just something to be aware of when you're filling that out. Also, the FAFSA is going to be available in multiple languages, so 11 of the most common languages spoken in the US. Also, the IRS import tax information. So this is where they can automatically get information to all of your tax information. So every contributor, which would be you, students' parents, must agree to allow for the IRS to directly import federal tax information. This is actually a good tool, very helpful. Back in the day, you'd have to manually enter everything, get your tax forms out, very stressful type of process, but they've really streamlined this. So it's going to be a lot easier for families. Student aid index. So this used to be called the expected family contribution. Okay. It was used to calculate need-based financial aid, need calculated by subtracting SAA from school's cost of attendance. So this is going to be what the colleges are going to be able to see what you can contribute in order to paying for your students' college. So some important dates. So we're still kind of waiting for that final date that FAFSA is going to open their application, but we're hoping definitely it'll be open by December 31st. We will be sending out a lot of communications once we receive when that official date is opened. Okay, so just being aware of that. Many of your students, the seniors, have already completed their FSA ID number. We had that in a lot of our senior workshops that we did in the beginning of the year. So please, communicate with your student. Most of them have hopefully completed the FSA ID number, which will streamline everything when they're logging into their FAFSA application. This takes about 2 to 3 minutes to do. So if you guys have not done that, make sure to do that, anytime from now until the application opens. And then for this year, they've extended the deadline to April 2nd. And that's going to be for both FAFSA and your California Dream Act application. So make sure, definitely get everything completed by that date. Try not to wait till the last moment. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and turn that over.
Thank you, Ms. Gatlin. So I'm going to talk about our financial aid timeline. So from now, what should we be doing? And what is the next semester going to be looking like from the financial perspective for our seniors? So as Ms. Gatlin just stated, most of you have already probably created your FSA ID. This is available for you to do starting right now. So if all of you, so all seniors would create a FSA ID, and one parent will also create an FSA ID, and that Globe will show that this is a link. So if you click on this presentation at a later time, you can click on that link. It'll take you directly to the federal government's website where you can create your FSA ID and be ready for when the application opens. Now, by the end of this month, the application will be open, crossing our fingers. So by December 31st, the FAFSA will be open. And at that time, you can begin to complete the 2024-2025 application. Once you're complete, you will submit that by the deadline that we just mentioned. So at the very latest by April 2nd, we do encourage our families to submit that sooner than that. That way, when the college admissions decisions come out, you have a financial aid award package along with that decision that will help you make your decision for where you're going to be attending. The later you submit your FAFSA, you might not get a financial aid award package in time or along with your decision in order to compare all of your financial aid package awards and make the best financial decision and the best college decision for your student and family. So after you've submitted the application, you're going to create what's called a Web Grants account. That's also linked here under number 3. What the Web Grants account is it's an account from the California State Aid Commission, and it's going to help you manage your Cal Grant. So any state-based aid that you would be eligible for. So when you create your Web Grants account, you'll be able to log in. It's going to have matched your Cal Grant GPA that our schools have already submitted on your behalf. It's going to have matched that to your FAFSA. And then you will be able to see in your portal whether you have qualified for California-based aid. Again, the Cal Grant is primarily, it's only eligible for students who are going to be attending a school in the state of California. So there's going to be 2 things you're going to do. You're going to be able to view updates to your Cal Grant. And then the second thing you're going to be able to do is update your school of attendance. So if you decide that you're going to attend a UC, a Cal State, a community college, or any private school within the state of California, you can update your school of attendance in your Web Grants account. After that, you're going to receive and review your offers. So you're going to hear back from your colleges. It's going to be an exciting time. And hopefully, if you've submitted early enough, along with those decisions, you will have received some financial aid offers. So you're going to review your decisions with your financial aid offers, make those comparisons to see what your out-of-pocket costs are going to be, what's the best financial decision for your family. And then by May 1st, you will SIR, so submit your intent to register to the college that you will be attending in the fall. So how to best find some financially fit colleges, because we understand that attending college, yes, it is about where you're going to be getting in, but also we do worry about how are we going to pay for college, right? We want it to be reasonable, affordable, and the best financial decision also for you and your future. We had a couple of questions regarding WUI in the Q&A before we got to the slide. So thank you for your patience. And so I'll talk a little bit about the Western Undergraduate Exchange. For those of you that have never heard of WUI, what this is it's an interstate tuition savings program. So the Western states, about 17 participating states on the West Coast have agreed to a tuition savings program for about 160 plus public colleges and universities within those states. So the purpose of this program is to provide steep savings on tuition for non-residents across each of these states. So for example, as a California student, if I were to attend a public university in Arizona under a qualifying program, then I may be eligible to receive a tuition discount so that I'm not paying the full non-resident tuition amount in Arizona. So this, how much is the savings? This non-resident tuition savings, it can be no more than 150% of that institution's non-resident tuition fee. So you're going to be saving, as opposed to a student from New York attending Arizona, as a California resident attending that college for that eligible program in Arizona, I would be paying no more than 150% of what that resident tuition rate is going to be. So how do I look for the schools that may participate in this? We have also linked the WUI website here, where you will be able to do a search based on the state or based on the college that you're considering. And then you'll be able to see a list of programs that are eligible for this tuition exchange. Sometimes some colleges may require a minimum GPA requirement, or they may exclude certain majors from this program, or have early application deadlines. So you want to look into it earlier. Some schools also may limit the number that are eligible for the WUI exchange rate. So the earlier that you do your research and find what schools you might want to apply through WUI, the better. So another method for you to find best financially fit colleges for you is the net price calculator. And we've linked the net price calculator on here. This one links to the College Board one, but there's plenty of net price calculators. Also, each college's website is required by law to have a net price calculator that's specific to their college and university. So if you have any schools in mind, then you can just Google that school's name plus net price calculator. It'll take you directly to that website. It will ask you for some general information regarding your finances. It may also ask you about your GPA, just to get an idea about where you stand and any merit scholarships you may be eligible for. So this is going to be taking into consideration the direct cost of attendance, and then along with some estimated indirect costs. And after punching in all those numbers, it'll give you an estimated bill before and after loans. So that way you'll have an idea about it's not going to be the exact number that you're going to be paying out of pocket, but you'll have a general idea, an estimate of what that's going to cost for you and your family. So you can have that be a factor as you're doing your college research. For our underclassmen, if you're kind of thinking about where should I apply, you can start to incorporate this into your college research process as well. And I know because the FAFSA is not yet open for our senior families, if you're curious about what the cost might be for some of the schools that you have applied to or are applying to, you can do the net price calculator right now. Okay, and one of the reasons that Ms. Nguyen mentioned for why should I apply for the FAFSA or CADA is the Promise Program. So the Promise Program is not unique to Saddleback. It's actually across all of the California community colleges within our state. So over 200 community colleges. So even if you're not attending Saddleback, if you're thinking of another community college within the state of California, the Promise Program is available at all of the community colleges. We've narrowed it down here for Saddleback College just because most of our families and our students will be attending Saddleback. So I'll just talk about what the benefits are at Saddleback College. The Promise Program basically covers tuition and fees for students, and all you have to do is fill out the Saddleback application. There's going to be a question on the Saddleback application that asks if you're interested in the Promise Program. So you're just going to mark yes for that. And then the second component is to fill out your FAFSA or CADA. And for that, there's no income ceiling, there's no income requirements that you need to meet. All you have to do is complete the application. So you would be getting covered fees. You can receive up to $300 to help cover your textbook costs. Saddleback will also give you a Chromebook to use, and they also link you with a success coach support. So it's not just financial, but it also helps our students be successful and to achieve their goals at the community college. So who is eligible? If you're a first-time college student, so all of our seniors who are going to be first-time freshmen next fall, you are eligible. You have to be a California resident or DREAM Act AB 540 student, and you must be a full-time student. So Saddleback is unique in that they have a full-time promise program, and also they have a part-time promise program too. Those benefits look a little slightly different, but this one is typically for our full-time students. So again, requirements, what do? You need to apply to Saddleback. You'll confirm your residence status that you're a California resident. You will submit the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application, and then you enroll. And that's all. There are requirements that you need to maintain in order to stay in the program for the following year. But other than that, these are the first steps for you to be eligible for the Promise program. So you would be getting 2 years for free. And then if you choose to transfer after that, then you can transfer, and that will have saved you 2 years of tuition that you can apply for your 4-year university if you choose to go that route. Okay, so what's next? So now we're wrapping up here. What do I need to do right now? So we talked about this in the beginning of the timeline, but this is what you can do immediately, even as you log off this webinar tonight. If you haven't done so already, all seniors and one parent, just one parent only, create your FSA ID. So we've linked the website for that here. It's going to take you to this screen, and you're just going to click on Get Started. All you need to have is your social security number. You need to have your cell phone on hand and or your email address. So they're going to do a 2-step verification process. So you'll need your phone or email, and then your social security number, and that's all you need to create your account. That way, when you, if you've created this account, once the FAFSA opens, you'll use this account to log in, begin your application, and it'll make that process seamless. These are the steps to creating your FSA ID. So like we mentioned, you'll need an email address. We have this as a printout and a PDF, so you can always reach out to your college and career counselors. We can provide you with this. This is more of a worksheet for you to use as you're creating your FSA ID, or if you want to keep this on hand so that you remember what your username and password is once that FAFSA opens. But you'll just create a username. We've listed the details of that here because sometimes that affects how you create and what you remember for your username and password. So we have that. You will enter your social security number, your birth date, and then your name exactly as it matches on your social security card. That'll be your profile. It's going to ask you some challenge questions as well for password recovery at a later time. Then it'll ask you to verify your email and phone number. They're going to send you an email and a text with a code that you'll just input, and that way it will verify your account. That completes the 2-step verification process, and then you should have this on hand. So whether it's in your phone or you have it written down somewhere, make sure that you have your information so that you're ready to go when the FAFSA opens. Okay, the year of the FAFSA or the California Dream Act application you will be completing, again, will be 2024 to 2025. That's the school year that your seniors are going to be their first-time freshmen. So they're going to be starting in the fall. That's why they're filling out the 24-25 FAFSA or CADA. We've linked both of those websites here. So remember that you're filling out one or the other, you're not filling out both. If you have a social security number, if the student has a social security number, they will fill out the FAFSA. And if you're a Dream Act or AB 540 student, you can fill out the California Dream Act application. So again, our fingers are crossed that this application is going to be live by no later than December 31st. We'll hope for sooner than later, but once that opens, that's open for you to begin right away, especially if you've already created your FSA ID. Just a reminder that the deadline is on April 2nd, but we encourage you to submit sooner than later. That way you'll have your financial aid awards for comparison when you make your decision by May 1st. So our schools have a lot of supports available on campus. These are all of our great, wonderful school sites. Each of the school sites also has a dedicated Futurology college and career counselor. And these are some of the supports that they will be offering all throughout spring semester. So they will be holding financial aid workshops on their sites and their campus. Many of them will be utilizing their tutorial times, Capo Valley, your gold time. I know they call it all different things. So all those tutorials will be available, and your college and career counselors will have flyers available for when their tutorials are. We are always available for one-on-one appointments, so you can always schedule with us on Calendly, or if you go onto our Futurology website, there's a way for you to schedule a one-on-one with any of us. And then lastly, there's also lunchtime drop-ins. So for our sites with the college and career centers, our counselors will most likely be available for drop-ins during lunchtime for quick questions or help assistance filling out the FAFSA or the DREAM Act application, or setting up your web grants account, anything related to financial aid. Okay, and lastly, we're just going to cover some FAQs as we close out this session. So just a big reminder, because we get some families asking, you know, we haven't qualified in the past, or we know our income won't qualify. What's the reason that I should apply? So many scholarships, institution-based scholarships, are based on the FAFSA or DREAM Act application as well. So institutions will receive what's called a student aid index number from the FAFSA. It's calculated from the information that you provide on your FAFSA, and utilizing that number, your colleges will be able to figure out their financial aid award packages for you. So you'll never know what you'll qualify for, what you'll be eligible for, if you never fill it out, right? So the institutions can offer institution-based grants or scholarships or work studies, loans, etc. So we always want to be on that safer side and fill this out to see whatever you might be eligible for. If you're considering going to a community college or Saddleback, the Promise program also requires the FAFSA or California DREAM Act application. And you know, we never know. We may have financial changes anytime from now till when, you know, our students start college. So this is kind of that safety net for you to be eligible for whatever you can be eligible for. Which application year do I fill out? So you will be filling out the 24-25 application. Again, that's the first year that your senior students will be in college. And for students who say, my parents don't have a social security number, which application should I complete? So the application is based on whether the student has a social security number or not. So if the student has a social, they will fill out the FAFSA. And in this case, the parents who do not have a social security number, they will be able to either print out a signature page and send it in, or they'll be able to create the FSA ID and complete the new FAFSA. Okay, we will take the rest of your Q&A here during our Q&A. But thank you so much for attending tonight. We hope this was helpful for all of you. I know there's some questions coming into the chat. We'll address these as we go. But before you go tonight, if you can just scan this QR code and complete our post survey, that would be immensely helpful for us. It gives us information about how we're doing, how we can best support you, and give you the information you need. So please fill out our post survey before you leave tonight, and we can begin addressing your questions.
Getting some really good questions in here. One was, should juniors be doing anything? I think if you want, you can create an FSA ID now as a junior. That's totally fine. But the FAFSA and CADA process is for seniors. So seniors are the ones who should be completing their financial aid application, just to answer that question. But thank you so much, everybody, for joining. We're going to start answering questions because you are rapid firing asking questions right now. So let's see, team members, feel free to jump in. I am just reading through. If you could put your questions in the Q&A, that helps us. The chat box is getting very congested, and we will not be able to see all of your questions because we are personally getting so many private messages from everybody that we can't keep up with them. So if you could please put your questions in the Q&A, that will help us keep track so that we're not missing anybody.
One question we received, and then we can move on to the Q&A chat box, is when can we expect to know if our child will receive financial aid and how much? So that depends on when you submit your FAFSA. So if you're able to submit your FAFSA as soon as possible, before March 2nd would be best. Then along with your admissions decision, sometime in March or April, you will receive a financial aid package award. So that's when you can find out. If you submit your FAFSA later, then it might not come out until a later time.
So somebody asked, what do they take into consideration when giving out the middle class scholarship other than the income ceiling? So for the middle class scholarship, it's going to be based on the information that was shared in your FAFSA application or your California Dream Act, depending on which one you qualify for. So it's going to use that information to determine if the student qualifies. And what's going to happen is the schools that the student applied to will see all of that financial information, and the state allocates a certain amount for the middle class scholarship. So there's a certain amount of dollars, basically. So the middle class scholarship, the only downside to it is that you won't get that information when you get your financial aid award letter, typically. So when you're getting your financial aid award letter from your colleges, you'll get Cal Grant information and some other information, but the middle class scholarship tends to be a little bit more of a later notification process. So students might not know that they qualify for the middle class scholarship until summer sometimes, and that is based on university financial allocations for the middle class scholarship and how many students applied for how many students applied on the FAFSA or CADA and who qualifies. So it's this whole calculus of who applied, who qualified, at what schools, and how much money do we have to distribute to these schools. And then it's determined how much of a scholarship can be provided to each student. So it takes a while. So just know that the notification will be a little bit later than your other state aid. So let's see here. Are there any specific websites for general scholarships? Yes, fastweb.com. Put that in, fastweb.com is a great one. Big Future, College Board, where your students apply for AP testing, SAT testing, all of that stuff. They have a great scholarship platform. And each of the individual high school sites have a scholarship page under guidance, and that is updated regularly with local scholarship opportunities, which is where I would start personally because it's a smaller applicant pool. And in our follow-up to all of you, we will include a list that will include links to the scholarship pages for all of our high schools so that you can access that as well. So we'll make sure to put that in our follow-up email to you.
I'll jump in next. Excuse me. One of the questions says, once your student starts college, should you update your FAFSA every year while they're in college or university? That's a good question. It's not a one and done. Every year you will submit the application for FAFSA or California Dream Act. It's based on your income the previous year. So they evaluate. Also, we mentioned that change of income or change of status, like things like jobs. So they evaluate each year. So yes, you should complete this every year if you want to be eligible for more student loans or more grants and things like that. And your colleges hopefully will be proactive and let you know, but definitely yearly.
So that goes along for the middle class scholarship. And then the question about the siblings. So because the FAFSA is something that you need to fill out every single year, it's based on that year's finances that they will calculate the student aid index. So that's on a yearly basis.
So if parents are divorced or separated, great question. We're getting this a lot tonight. If parents are divorced or separated, do we both need to provide incomes? So for the FAFSA, what you'll do is you'll report the income of the parent who contributed the most financially. So you'll have to kind of do the math, but whatever parent contributed more financially in 2022, that will be the parent that will report their income on the FAFSA application. And if that parent is remarried, then the step parent's finances will also be reported as well. So do students need to have the PSAT? No, the students do not have to have a PSAT for financial aid purposes. Juniors who took the PSAT also qualify for the National Merit Scholarship, which is a scholarship that, again, juniors qualify for based on their score on the PSAT in junior year. And that's based on national averages and what students are getting all over the country on the PSAT. And then our schools were already notified of our semifinalists in the fall. So our current seniors were already notified and are currently in the process of being chosen, I guess, for National Merit Scholarships right now. But that's generally how it works.
Somebody asked a question. Let me see where to go. Will you explain merit scholarships a little bit more? So we probably talked about it and maybe didn't explain it well. The merit scholarships are going to be offered potentially from a university or college based on how students performed in high school. So like your GPA. So many colleges have like a merit-based index you can find on their website. So if you have above a 3.5, you earn $2,000 off your tuition, or if you have above a 4.0, you get this much. So some colleges are very forthcoming with that information, and some it's a little bit harder. I bet if you call, they might give you that info. But merit-based is a form of aid, a scholarship, usually based on students' GPA or grades.
So Tiffany asked a question about strategic aid. Has anybody heard of strategic aid? Unfortunately, we don't know much about it. We can try to investigate with you and your student if you want to reach out to your futurology counselor at your site. Happy to do some investigating for you, but personally have not heard of strategic aid. Okay, trying to get through all of these responses here. And just to let you know, we will send a transcript of the Q&A in our follow-up as well. So you'll get essentially a document that lists all of the questions and answered questions in addition to the recording and the slides for tonight so that you can look over it later as well. So UCs have very few merit scholarships. Public universities tend not to have a ton of dollars to give out to students, but there are some merit scholarships. Ms. Kang, do you want to speak to that?
Yeah, so for the UCs, there's on the application, there's a page called scholarships. So you would literally just check off anything that you are eligible for or anything that applies to you. They'll take that into consideration along with your FAFSA, and then they'll craft your financial aid package award from that. So there's also a question in the chat that's asking if a student qualified for merit scholarships, then when do they find out about that? So any scholarships that an institution will award the student, they should include that in their financial aid package award. So that's going to come and be released as a whole. And that package award, which we'll have another webinar in the spring semester of how to interpret that. That's a whole nother ballgame, because that award letter will have all of the grants, the loans, the scholarships, work study. It'll have everything that you qualify for. So we will be going over how to read that award letter as well. So you'll find all of that information out through that financial aid package award in the spring semester after decisions are released.
And for merit scholarships at the UCs, they're going to be based on grades. Some might require a separate application, but many of them will be considered based on students' applications and the GPAs reported in their academic profile. So it will depend on the campus and what specific scholarships they have, but they have very few like large merit scholarships. Like there's the Regent scholarships and the Chancellor scholarships, but those are going to be like big ones, and not many students will qualify for those. So does a partial athletic scholarship hurt eligibility for financial aid? Well, your FAFSA is going to report household income IRS tax data, right? That's what is going to be reported to the school. However, the school, in calculating your student's financial aid award package, will know that the student is getting an athletic scholarship. So that will adjust the amount of aid overall that is given to the student. They're going to consider all sources of funding that's coming into the student from the school, which includes schools' merit scholarships, maybe financial aid or federal grants that they might qualify for, or state grants that they might qualify for, as well as athletic scholarships. So the athletic scholarship coming in from the school does factor into the overall amount of aid that the school is going to offer, because they consider that as aid, right? So whatever athletic scholarship there is, that's part of the student's aid. And depending on the student's academic or the student's aid index, which is calculated by the FAFSA, they will determine if your student needs more than what the athletic scholarship provides. And if they do, based on that SAI, the student aid index, then they might find other sources of aid for you by way of loans or maybe additional scholarships or grants. Really good questions, and a lot of really good questions. Thank you for your active involvement. What else do you have? We have a few more minutes. We want to answer all of your questions. Please note again, as Ms. King mentioned earlier, we are going to have a ton of support on campus for your students. I mean, workshops in the library or on campus in the evenings. At every single high school site, we will have evening workshops for our families. So if you just need somebody to help you out and sit down with you, we're going to have that for you. And you're welcome to attend a workshop at another high school. Let's say you can't make it to the one at your high school. You're welcome to register for any workshop that's being provided throughout the entire district. We have 14 workshops planned in the evening or late afternoon in the spring, so you are not alone.
There's a question about the limit on the loan amounts. So typically for students, that loan max has been $5,500, subsidized and unsubsidized combined. So that's the maximum that loan amount that they will give to the student. The rest of that, if you are eligible, that they may offer you a Parent Plus loan. So then the rest of that would be offered to the parent to take out the loan under the parent's name and credit. So for the WUI, so that's not necessarily a scholarship, it's an interstate tuition savings program. So that's going to happen at the time of application. So that'll happen as when you're a senior. So you'll be filling out the application to that college in particular, and then filling out your FAFSA when you are a senior. So not open yet for sophomores and juniors, but you can go on the website to do a little bit more research on what colleges are participating and then what programs are eligible. And the limit for parent loans is higher than $5,500.
And it will depend on the information shared on your FAFSA or California Dream Act application, how much you'll qualify for. We still have almost 100 of you in here. So please, if you have questions, ask them. We want
And before you go, please remember to fill out your post survey.
Yes.
So if you just want to scan that QR code, that's what we just left that slide up there for you. And then Ms. Nguyen just put it also in the chat. So if you can fill that out for us, it'll help us in our job to help you.
Okay, my friends. Well, it doesn't look like we have any more questions coming in, but thank you so much for spending some time with us. It's a lot, but again, there is support at your sites. We are here to support you. So please don't be shy. Email us, come to one of our workshops, schedule an appointment with us, and we're happy to walk you through this to make sure that your students have the best opportunities available to them and as many kind of, fun sources of funding that we can find for them for college.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everybody. Have a great night. Thank you so much, Jacqueline.
Mhm.
Thank you. Have a good night.
Thank you.